So, this one's again gonna be without a video because it is fairly late. It's not as late as yesterday, actually. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I don't know why. But yeah, it is what it is. We're gonna see. It is gonna be an article about depression, but it is gonna look at depression in a pretty different light. It is going to be about depression in a different way, and it is an article by the psychologytoday.com site, and I'm going to link it down in the description and or in the show notes so that you can check it out as well, maybe on your own. Maybe just go right now to this article and read it on your own, because I just want to spread the information. I just want to give something, whether you're just watching this video or basically listening to it or listening to the podcast or you're reading the article on your own is not that of a big thing for me. But yeah, we have got depression all wrong. It's trying to save us. This is the headline. New theories recognize depression as part of biological survival strategy. And as I've read it, I thought, well, very interesting. And I really am interested in what this perspective is all about. And I also thought, yeah, it's probably the case, because there's always got to be a reason for why we're feeling a certain way, like the feelings and the behavior quite that we're having. It's quite, at least I think, always based on a reason. And, as there is a reason for being anxious, as there is a reason for being fearful, and so on and so on and so on. So for generations, we have seen depression as by the way, this article is by Alison Escalante, I don't know, MD, and she is from Shootstorm. Maybe it is blog, maybe it is something else, I don't know. And it was posted on December the 22nd, 2020, so actually today, as I'm recording it. For generations, we have seen depression as an illness, an unnecessary deviation, I think, from normal functioning. It's an idea that makes sense because depression causes suffering and even death. But what if we have got it all wrong? What if depression is not an aberration at all, but an important part of our biological defense system? More and more researchers across specialities are questioning our current definitions of depression. Biological anthropologists have argued that depression is an adaptive response to adversity and not a mental disorder. In October, the British Psychological Society published a new report on depression, stating that depression is best thought of as an experience or set of experiences rather than as a disease. And neuroscientists are focusing on the role of the autonomic nervous system, ANS, in depression. According to the polyvagal theory of the ANS, depression is part of a biological defense strategy meant to help us survive. And if you think about it, just some thoughts, if it is about the autonomic nervous system, then you could also use the breathing technique by Wim Hof, so the Wim Hof breathing, which seems to be influencing the autonomic nervous system. And so in that sense, you might be able to cure, quote unquote, maybe, I don't know, depression with this breathing technique. Just a thought. The common wisdom is that depression starts in the mind with distorted thinking that leads to psychosomatic symptoms like headaches, stomachs, or fatigue. Now, models like the polyvagal theory suggest that we've got it backward. It's the body that detects danger and initiates a defense strategy meant to help us survive. That biological strategy is called immobilization, and it manifests in the mind and the body with a set of symptoms we call depression. When we think of depression as irrational and unnecessary suffering, we stigmatize people and rob them of hope. But when we begin to understand that depression, at least initially, happens for a good reason, we lift the shame. People with depression are courageous survivors, not damaged invalids. And I actually gotta say, yeah, it really changes the whole fucking conversation. And it's amazing. Laura believes that depression saved her life. Most of the time, her father only heard her with words, but it was when she stood up to him that Laura's dad got dangerous. That's when he'd get that vicious look in his eyes. More than once, his violence had put Laura's life at risk. Laura's father was so perceptive that he could tell when she felt rebellious on the inside, even when she was hiding it, and he punished her for those feelings. It was the depression that helped Laura survive. Depression kept her head down, kept her from resisting, helped her accept the unacceptable. Depression numbed her rebellious feelings. Laura grew up at a time where there was no one to tell, nowhere for her to get help outside her home. Her only strategy was to survive in place, and so she did. Looking back, Laura does not regret her childhood depression. She values it. Going through her own healing process and working with her therapist helped her see how depression served her. Laura's story is stark, as it is actually kind of a Germanic word. It's ugly, and it helps us understand that even though depression may happen for a good reason, that does not make it a good thing. Laura suffered deeply and describes the pain of her hopelessness vividly. Her depression was a bad experience that started as the last resort of a good biological system. Yeah, I think this last paragraph is really important. Without really thinking about depression as something that's good and yeah, let's get depressive because, then we can learn something. No, not really. It is still something ugly. It is still something painful, and it's still something that, it is a defense strategy, as they are calling it. It is a defense strategy. And when are we just put into such a strategy? Yeah, when we are in danger. Guess what? And this is not a good state to be in, I think, at least, or especially not for long periods of time. But yeah. Depression starts with immobilization. According to the polyvagal theory, discovered and articulated by neuroscientist Stephen Porges, our daily experience is based on a hierarchy of states in the autonomic nervous system. When the ANS feels safe, we experience a sense of well-being and social connection. That's when we feel like ourselves. But the autonomic nervous system is also constantly scanning our internal and external environment for signs of danger. If our ANS detects a threat or even a simple lack of safety, its next strategy is the fight or flight response, which we often feel as anxiety. Sometimes the threat is so bad or goes on for such a long time that the nervous system decides there is no way to fight or to flee. At that point, there is only one option left, which is immobilization. The immobilization response is the original biological defense in higher animals. This is the shutdown response we see in reptiles, also known as the freeze or faint response. Immobilization is mediated by the dorsal vagus nerve, or dorsal vagus nerve. It turns down the metabolism to a resting state, which often makes people feel faint or sluggish. Immobilization has an important role. It dulls pain and makes us feel disconnected. Think of a rabbit hanging limply in the fox's mouth. That rabbit is shutting down, so it won't suffer too badly when the fox eats it. And the immobilization response also has a metabolic effect, slowing the metabolism and switching the body to ketosis. Some doctors speculate that this metabolic state could help healing in severe illness. So are we talking about depression being something good now? In humans, people often describe feeling out of their bodies during traumatic events, which has a defensive effect of cushioning the emotional shock. This is important because some things are so terrible, we don't want people to be fully present when they happen. As it is with surgery. You're getting some narcotics so that you don't feel the pain. And this is kind of the body's natural way to do so, which I think is also done by adrenaline. Adrenaline making your veins. Do your veins expand or just compress? I think they expand, actually. It would at least make more sense. But anyway. Anyway. So the immobilization response is a key part of the biological defense, but it is ideally designed to be short-term. Either the metabolic shutdown preserves the organism, i.e. the rabbit gets away, or the organism dies and the fox eats the rabbit. But if the threat continues definitely, and there is no way to fight or flee, the immobilization response continues. And since the response also changes brain activity, it impacts how people's emotions and their ability to solve problems. People feel like they can't get moving physically or mentally. They feel hopeless and helpless. That's depression. And as I'm thinking about it, I mean, if you're really deeply depressed and you're not even able to get up and get out of bed and actually do something, whatever it might be, then it really indeed is some sort of immobilization. I mean, you get numb, you get like, yeah, I think it just makes sense that this is just a strategy of your body, your body trying to keep you alive. In the end, the only thing that we are really good at is surviving. This is what we were meant to do, actually, quite surviving. And then that's quite it. And also reproduction, of course. So surviving and reproduction. But the thing is, you can only reproduce yourself if you are living and not if you're dead. So I don't know. I think the first step kind of is just staying alive and not dying. But I do wonder whether depression was also a thing back in the days, like really ancient days. But yeah. So does depression have value? It's easy to see why Laura's childhood circumstances would set off the immobilization response and even how it might have helped her survive. But why does it happen in people with less obvious adversity? Our culture tends to think of depression in the person who finds work too stressful as a sign of weakness. Self-help articles imply that they just need more mental toughness and they could lean in and solve it. Even some therapists tell them that their depression is a distorted perception of circumstances that aren't so bad. But obviously, I mean, I've been talking about it before. If somebody is depressed, then this situation the person is in is bad for the person. It just is. Whether it is bad for you and whether you perceive it as something bad or not is not something that's important. It is about this person. It's not about you. It's not about your dad, your mom, this dude over there in a corner. It's about this person. And if this person believes and thinks and feels that this situation is bad, then it just makes sense that they're getting into such a state. At least in my point of view. And just working on your weaknesses and just being a little bit more greedy or whatever you want to call it, it's not good advice. It's like, okay, just do that. Just go ahead and make something. Well, thank you, motherfucker, for this amazing advice. I'm gonna go ahead. But that is not how the body sees it. The defense response in the autonomic nervous system, whether fight, flight, or immobilization, are not about the actual nature of the trigger. They are about whether this body decides there is a threat, as it is with allergies, actually. And that happens at a pre-conscious point. The biological threat response starts before we think about it, and then our higher level brain makes up a story to explain it. We don't get to choose this response, it happens before we know it. Studying anxiety has revealed that many modern circumstances can set off the flight or fight response. For instance, low rumbling noises from construction equipment sound to the nervous system like the growl of a large predator, so better run. Or feeling like they are being evaluated at school removes kids' sense of safety and triggers fight or flight. I think it really is all about safety. I mean, if I'm meditating in public, for example, in the train or somewhere where I don't fully feel safe, it is a strange feeling. It really is a strange feeling. But yeah, because I'm so vulnerable, quite. Better give the teacher attitude or avoid homework. And to most of us, fight or flight feels like anxiety. Eventually, if these modern triggers last long enough, the body decides it can't get away. Next comes immobilization, which the body triggers to defend us. According to Porges, what we call depression is the cluster of emotional and cognitive symptoms that sits on top of a physiological platform in the immobilization response. It's a strategy meant to help us survive. The body is trying to save us. Depression happens for a fundamentally good reason. And that changes everything. When people who are depressed learn that they are not damaged, but have a good biological system that is trying to help them survive, they begin to see themselves differently. After all, depression is notorious for the feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. But if depression is an active defense strategy, people may recognize they are not quite so helpless as they thought. Shifting out of immobilization. So if depression is the emotional expression of the immobilization response, then the solution is to move out of that state of defense. Porges believes it is not enough to simply remove the threat. Rather, the nervous system has to detect robust signals of safety to bring the social state back online. The best way to do that? Social connection. One of the symptoms of depression is shame, a sense of having let other people down or being unworthy to be with them. When people are told that depression is an aberration, we are telling them that they are not part of the tribe. They're not right, they don't belong. That is when their shame deepens and they avoid social connection. We have cut them off from the path that leads them out of depression. It's time that we start honoring the courage and strength of depressed people. It is time we start valuing the incredible capacity of our biology to find a way in hard times. And it is time that we stop pretending depressed people are any different than anyone else, because they are not. And this was something added by me. I think it's one of the most amazing articles that I've read in a really incredibly long time. And I think it also says a lot. I think it's so important. The funny thing, by the way, is that in the references section, which is on the very bottom of the article, you're seeing references from 2009 and 2007, but I've never read an article like that about the topic in this perspective before, which is a fucked up thing, to be honest. Ketamine combats depression via unique molecular mechanisms, which, I don't know, I gotta have to say, I mean, if we're able to solve, you know what, if, I mean, I just wanted to say, if depression is all about our head, meaning there is a threat, there is something going on and our body/mind doesn't like to have that. And it sees a threat. And unseeing the threat and feeling safety makes things better, making you feel less depressed. So if ketamine or any other drug, MDMA, whatever it might be, is able to show you a reason or a way or whatnot that whatever you're seeing or perceiving as a threat is not one, it just makes sense that it helps them. But the problem is I just thought about depression as something that is about the mind rather than the body, like a threat. I mean, it's very complicated and very, very difficult to say, since, if you think about it, our body/our mind is, it is actually our body, as this article states, not the mind that is seeing some, and as I'm talking about it, it feels more like a distortion of reality. We're seeing danger in where there is no danger. More and more researchers, blah, blah, blah. Biological anthropologists have argued that depression is an adaptive response to adversity and not a mental disorder. So there is something that threatens us. We are seeing a threat. Our body is noticing a threat. So, what can we do? We can fight, we can flight, or we can immobilize and feel depressed. So what makes sense to do in such a situation? Obviously, get rid of the threat. But why is our body seeing a threat in the first place? It's a very difficult topic. I think there is. I think also I would have to kind of write things down so that I can deeply think about it. But anyway, I'm gonna end the episode there. So I wish you the best health, happiness, and also success, and also hope that you're gonna remind yourself and you're gonna be remembered, which basically means your legacy, and basically means just being a nice person and then being remembered as a nice person, which is a pretty fucking cool thing as well. 3 other questions that have your why are you here? What are you trying to change and what is bothering you the most? These 3 questions hopefully gonna show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea, which is a pretty fucking cool thing. But yeah, I'm gonna see you next time. So bye bye, and please take care of yourself and your loved ones and have a nice holiday or holidays. Yeah, bye bye.